everyone, it's me again, and welcome to Faith's Feels. If you guys are new to my channel, first of all, welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name is Faith Grenade, and I make makeup videos here on YouTube. See that subscribe button? Just give it a little clicky poo for me. So what you've stumbled upon is Faith's Feels, where I give you my feels on a makeup product. And finally, I'm getting around to reviewing this puppy. It is the Jeffree Star Beauty Killer palette. Now there's some controversy surrounding this thing, and I'm gonna get into the nitty-gritty and tell you guys if this product is worth the dough. So let's go. Packaging is what I'm going to discuss first, and then we'll get into the goods. Packaging is pretty awesome, I gotta say. It is cardboard, which you guys know how I feel about cardboard. I'm like, nah, whatever. But it's a sturdy feeling cardboard, and what I like about this packaging is that it is nice and thin. So I can put this, you know, in one of my little Zuka pouches in my kit and travel with it without it taking up too much space. That said, it is cardboard, so there's gonna be a little bit less protection than what you would get with plastic. There are your colors. Now I will tell you, the ingredients list is not on the back of this palette. It's not anywhere on the packaging, and it is not on the website. You can only find the ingredients list on the box that the palette came in, which I already threw out. So yeah, that's not ideal. Ideally, I would have some ingredients on the back here so I could see if there's anything I'm sensitive to when I'm reaching for this, but just keep that in mind. You might have to hold on to the box. Inside, you've got this metallic gold kind of shininess, and there are your colors. There are 10 of them. Pretty decently sized pans, all things considered, so when it comes to the near $50 price tag, you are certainly getting a good value when it comes to amount of product. But is the product any good? Well, let's get into that, shall we? I've worked with pretty much all of them. I think there's only 2 that I have not used. We'll go ahead and do the top row first and then the bottom row. The first of the 2 that I have not used is this one, which is called Star Power. It is a hot pink, intense pink, very Jeffree Star, you know, very in line with his brand, but I don't use these colors. Hot pink does not look good on me. I have a very yellow undertone to my skin, and I'm olive skinned as well, so if I use hot pinks like this, the yellow greeny undertone of my skin will come through and I will look like I'm jaundiced. So have not used this. Plus, when I swatched it, and I will go ahead and do that for you, just a couple quick finger swatches. I know, brush swatches are like the ideal thing, but I'll just do a quick finger swatch here. You can see that it's, you know, pretty pigmented, decently blendable. The issue I have with this shade is that it stains. It stains my finger, it stains my skin, like where I swatched it, and I do not want to use a shadow that is going to stain my skin, because then my skin is going to be a pale shade of hot pink for a couple of days until I can get it off. Then we have Princess. Princess is a really pretty color. I used it in the first tutorial I made with this palette. I'll leave it in the cards up there so you guys can watch it. Give a little finger swatch. Princess is like a pale lavender color with, I would say, kind of a shift to it, like a bluey, purpley shift to it. I'll do a quick finger swatchy here. There you go. You can barely see it there, and there is some pink shift to that as well. This one, you really have to build up. It's not as pigmented as it probably could be, but it's not a bad shade. The only thing that I am not thrilled with, here, I'll build this up so you can see the color a little better. The only thing I'm not too thrilled about with this shade is that it stings. I was using it in my inner corner in that look, and some of the fallout kind of dropped into my eye, as things sometimes do, and it burned like you wouldn't believe. My eyes were on fire when that happened. Like, it stung so bad, and that's not something I run into a lot with eyeballs and eyeshadow, because my eyes aren't that sensitive. So that was really alarming to me. So if you have sensitive eyes, you might want to like, you know, be wary of this shade, because as beautiful as it is with its pale lavender pinky shimmeriness, you're gonna have to build it up quite a bit, and if any of it gets in your eyes, it burns. It burns pretty badly. Violence is our next shade right here. Violence I do have in my eye look today. I've got it kind of blended into the halo eye. It's in the crease a little bit. It's kind of all over the place today. And Violence is, it looks a lot more cool toned in the pan than it does on a swatch, but it's a warmer toned purple color with blue shimmery reflect in it, but you can't really pick up the blue too well unless you really build the color up. Now this color's texture is really, really nice. It's very smooth, very creamy, blends out quite nicely as you can see. And all of these are with no primer. I did not prime my hand prior to doing this, but obviously primer would bring out the shade a little bit more. But I don't know, it's not the purple I wanted it to be, but that doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the shadow. It's a good quality shadow. It worked pretty well in the look that I'm using it for. I wish it was a little bit more cool toned, just a hair, because it looks kind of Barney purple in the swatch, you know what I mean? But it's not a bad shadow. You can't really see the blue reflect once you swatch it out. It just swatches out to this sort of satin finish, warm purple shade. Then the next shade we've got in the line is Rich Bitch. And if you guys watched my last tutorial about this palette, I'll leave that one in the cards up as well so you can check it out. This is a rich bitch to work with. It's an antiqued gold color, Rich Bitch is. I'll give you a little finger swatch here. And this is crumbly AF. Like even when you pull the finger swatch, here's my how-to swatch video in case you're wondering about my technique. When you pull the swatch, you can see all of that crumbliness. It's literally like putting your finger in Parmesan cheese. That's what it feels like grated Parmesan cheese. But then you swatch it out and boom, like, you know, you get impact. Definitely. There is color impact there. It's a really pretty shade. It's just there's a lot of kind of chunkiness to work with, which can be a little bit tough when it comes to fallout and when it comes to blending. So this is something that you're gonna wanna use a sticky base for. It's a beautiful color. Like, I adore the color. It's just a little bit on the tough side to work with for my taste. Not to mention, and this is kind of the point of contention with me in this color, I did that look, and anytime I do my makeup, I go out in it because I want to, you know, really give the product a solid test run. So I went out with that makeup on, with that kind of red halo eye and the black lip, and because it was a really beautiful look and I wanted to wear it out. So I wore it out. I wasn't even out for that long. I think I just went to the bar on base here and had some drinks with some friends. Between the time I applied the eyeshadow and the time I got home for the night, I think it had only been like maybe 7 hours, if that, maybe 6 hours. And my eye makeup ended up looking like this at the end of the day. Yeah, that, I don't know what happened. I don't know, like, you know, maybe it was the primer I used, but I don't think it was the primer because that primer works really well with all of my other eyeshadows, and it had worked well with this palette in the past. But for some reason, by the time I got home that night, first of all, the eyeshadow creased probably by about hour 3, like hour 2 or 3. The eyeshadow on my lid had creased. And then by the time I got home for the night, that's no touching up. That's no, you know, anything at all. I didn't remove any of my makeup. All of the eyeshadow on my lid was gone. I mean, gone. Like, it had completely faded away. And that's just weird. Like, I've never had that happen since I discovered eyeshadow primer. I've never had to worry about that, you know? I've never had a situation where an eyeshadow literally disappeared off my lid. By the end of the day, there was none of this left. There was no gold left on my lid. And I don't know if it was the way the gold was made or like what went on, but this definitely did not last through Japanese humidity. Did not at all. Like, so it's a beautiful color, yes, but if you're in a humid climate or you have oily eyelids, this thing will disappear. It will be completely gone off of your lid. That was not okay. For me, that's just not, like, for how much you're paying for this palette, like, seriously, it should not be disappearing off my eyes within like 6 hours. For real. Next shade is Courtney, and you guys heard me talk about Courtney in my last tutorial with this palette. Courtney is one of the best shades in this palette by far, and it's also one of the most boring. Imagine that. But I'll just finger swatch it out here for you. Look at that beautiful kind of peachy, warm brown, perfect transition shade. It's consistent all the way throughout. It's pigmented, it's blendable, it's soft. It is a beautiful color and I love it. That's probably, like I said, like my #1 favorite color in this palette is Courtney. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous. And it's kind of the formula that I wish all of these other shadows were. Is expensive. Expensive in the pan, looks like a turquoisey teal blue with a little bit of green in it and some blue sparkle. But when you swatch it out, it's, I don't know, like the finger swatch looks great. You're like, oh man, I'm pumped. And then you do the swipe and it's just like, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not as metallic as I would like it to be. It's just got that soft sparkle in it, and it's sort of muted on my skin tone. Now, this could just completely be me being an olive skinned person, but this just looks muted and kind of weird, and you can see my skin through it. The camera's probably not picking that up, but you can definitely see my skin tone through this shadow. So it's just not as pigmented as I would want it to be. Like with a color like that, this is a color that is kind of either like a central part of your look or a pop of color on the lower lash line or what have you. But if it's gonna be a pop of color, it has to be intense. It has to be full on from the get-go. And this one just, I don't know, I can't quite explain it, but I feel like there's something missing there when it comes to the formula. It's not a bad shadow, like it'll still kind of blend out and what have you, but it's just, there's something missing. There's something missing. So let's move right along into Confession. Confession is the big talking point of this palette. A lot of people really love it, and honestly, I'm on the bandwagon too. I adore this shadow. I'll go ahead and swatch it for you guys. Bam. Oh God, that's beautiful. I know, I hate making sexy noises too, but every time I swatch this shadow out, I'm just like, oh, it's delicious. It's a beautiful, delicious sort of cranberry shade, but it's got this brightness and this vibrance to it that is just gorgeous. And it's got the perfect kind of metallic finish. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Now, it also disappeared on my lid in that picture, but I also used it in my crease and it didn't disappear. So I have a feeling most of the problem with, you know, the makeup going bye-bye on my eyeballs was dealing with the gold shade Rich Bitch, and it had nothing to do with this, I don't think, because this actually stayed for the most part in the rest of my eye. And I know this is gonna be way old school, but if you have the Sephora Pantone Universe Facets of Marsala palette, the shade Marsala Metallic, this one right here, is a complete dupe for Confession. So if you already have this palette and you would only be buying this palette for Confession, you don't need it, you already have it. So that's a little dupe for you guys. There's probably a dupe for Courtney in that palette too. That palette is amazing. Next up, we have Vanity. Vanity is kind of, I don't know what to think about this color. It's like a muted, cool toned gray plum shade. It definitely shows up kind of gray plum on the eyes too. It doesn't just look black, so I will give it that. But this shadow, it's perfectly good on its own and it blends decently well, but it's kinda, it doesn't play well with others, I'll put it that way. If you try to use it in an eye look with other colors that aren't like in the same color family, it's gonna look really muddy really fast. China White, I'm not even gonna bother swatching this because it's just gonna look like my skin. But it is a matte kind of off-white color. I would say it's kind of a white with a fleshy sort of peachy undertone. It's really nice. It's another really nice shade in this palette. Very smooth consistency, decent pigmentation, great for blending out and using on the brow bone and things like that. So awesome color. And then there's Black Rainbow. Another palette with a black in it. Okay, like seriously, brands, what is up with palettes, with putting black in every single palette? Chances are good if you're dealing with like makeup addicts, makeup collectors, or even people who aren't as into makeup, if they want a black shadow, they already have one. Chances are good. I mean, I sat down with myself one day and sat here and named off 12 black eyeshadows that I have in my collection, just without even having to look, without even having to think about it. I could name 12 palettes or 12 separate black eyeshadows that I have in my collection. I don't need any more. And that, you know, that's a slot in this palette that really could have been filled with, you know, something unique and awesome and amazing and, you know, so very Jeffree. But this is a black with some rainbow sparkle in it. I have it deepening up my halo eye today, and honestly, the sparkle, it shows up in a finger swatch, but if you use this on the eyes, the sparkle doesn't really show up. It's just a matte black, and I'm just like, really? Another palette with a black in it? Really? Like, ugh. Why? That said, it's not a bad black. I mean, it's decently pigmented. It's pretty blendable. It's a little bit on the charcoal side. It's not as dark as, say, Dark Matter from Melt Cosmetics. It's not quite that pitch black, but it's pretty similar in tone to the Kat Von D black. It's decently dark enough to do the job, but it's just sort of like, especially with Jeffree Star, with how creative and out there and bombastic he is, I was really expecting something a little bit more exciting than a black with shimmery sparkles in it. Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry I had to let my camera charge for a little bit because it was definitely like dying. I've shown you guys most of the shades. The only thing I haven't swatched is China White because it's white. It's not really gonna show up on camera. And yeah, I did finger swatches. I was gonna do brush swatches, but honestly, there's like the only difference between the finger swatches and the brush swatches is the brush swatches are slightly less pigmented than the finger swatches, which some of these colors would not be super visible on a brush swatch. Just know that. Okay, low down with the throwdown. Is this worth the dough? Well, I feel like it depends. I feel like it depends on like what you're into and, you know, how much makeup you already have. Personally, there are good things about this palette. I don't hate it. And I am glad it's in my collection. There are some things I really like about this. This has a lot of really good potential. But there's also a few major problems that I really can't look past. You know, not quite half the palette is absolutely beautiful, which is, you know, that's something to consider. But a lot of those other shadows are just, I don't know, you guys saw the swatches yourself, they're just missing something. And Rich Bitch, I don't like you. It's such a tragedy with Rich Bitch because I do adore the color, but I cannot explain what happened there. I cannot explain how my eyeshadow just disappeared off my lid. Like, I can't impress to you guys just how weird that was because that never happens to me anymore. Honestly, I'd be interested to kind of play around with Rich Bitch a little more and use it with a different primer or with a base or something and see if that improves things, but I don't know what happened there. That was weird, but I figured it was important to tell you guys about it and let you know what happened and show you the photos because, you know, it's something to take into consideration, especially if you're gonna spend this much money on a palette. Personally, do I think this is worth $45? from a value standpoint, from an amount of product versus cost standpoint, yeah, it's a pretty good value because you are getting pretty large pans, but from a quality standpoint, I can't recommend this. Like, I can't, because the shadows that are good in here are really, really good. But out of the 10, there are maybe 4 that I would say confidently, yes, I recommend these without a doubt. 4. That's less than half of the shadows. And the ones that I love, the ones that are like pigmented and blendable and do what I want them to do, are, you know, that one, and that one, and then sometimes that one. They're all like neutrally colors. You know, most of the pops of color just plumb don't give me what I'm looking for. And Rich Bitch is a beautiful gold, but if it's gonna disappear off my eyeball, like what's the point? For $45, honestly, all of the good shades in here, you probably already have in your collection, especially if you have this like super ancient old, I know, but if you have this Facets of Marsala palette, you have a lot of the shadows that are really beautiful in the Beauty Killer palette. And you know, Courtney is your standard peachy brown transition shade. There's probably a dupe in your collection for that. You already have a black. You already have, you know, your deep cranberry shade, because 1,000,001 brands are coming out with warm eyeshadow palettes that have colors very similar to that. I swatched, looking for an exact dupe for Confession, I swatched like 5 or 6 cranberry shadows that I already have in my collection from other palettes. The one in the Marsala palette is the closest, but there's others that will probably give you a similar effect on the eyes. So yeah, honestly, I can't recommend this to you guys, because it is my job to recommend to you products that are going to work for you the first time, every time. And for the most part, this has, but there's just those few inconsistencies. There's just those few problems, and that one big problem that keep me from saying, go ahead, pull the trigger. Like, especially if you're gonna charge $45 for an eyeshadow palette, my expectations are going to be high, because one of my holy grail eyeshadow palettes, the Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca Remix palette, has 24 colors in it and was, you know, maybe a couple dollars more than this. So my expectations are high, and this one just didn't quite meet them. It was close. It was very, very close, and it's got a lot of potential. So I already know that he's coming out with another eyeshadow palette for fall. I believe he's calling it Androgyny. I'll be interested to see what happens with that one. I'll be interested to see what kind of shades he chooses, if he decides to be a little more out of the box, or if he decides to pander to the major market, and what that palette's quality is going to be like. But this one, honestly, you know, if you skip it, you're not really missing out on too much. And I feel bad saying that, because, you know, Jeffree Star's Velour Liquid lipsticks are some of my favorite lipsticks of all time. So please, if you're gonna shop from his brand, stick to that. I hope this review was helpful for you guys. I hope I wasn't too scathing. You guys know me, I like to keep things pretty positive. I don't like to be one of those people who's like, this palette sucks, don't get it. Because a lot of the time, you know, in my makeup life, I've run into maybe like one type of eyeshadow that truly honestly sucked. I can usually find the good in most things. And there are some good things about this palette, but for the price point, I think you can do a lot better. You know, if you have a budget of $45 and you go into a Sephora, you will probably be able to find something, or even go into an indie brand's website like Violet Voss or something. You will probably be able to find something that works a little bit better than this does, at least for me. And I feel bad that it's not a super positive review, but at the same time, I'm always gonna be straightforward and honest with you guys, because I don't want you to spend your hard-earned coin on something that's gonna disappoint you. So I hope you guys found this video helpful, informative, or interesting. If you did, there's a button for that. Spank that like button in the butt, you know it deserves it. And if you wanna see more from me, subscribe and become a member of the Faithful today. I put out new videos every Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching and joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Toodles!